Of this fine game for now, and then I think there'll be some time for free play afterwards. My name is Charles Pratt. I'm a professor at NYU Game Center. I'm one of Bennett's colleagues at the Game Center. Appreciate you all coming out. I'm going to have some questions. We'll probably go for a little while, and then we'll have some time for questions from you if you have any for him. Let me see if I can grab my notes and we'll get started.
We're going to let him keep playing.
Yeah, why not, right? It's just turn the volume down. I think, is there a function for you? Alright, there we go. Alright, great. So, first off, I want to say congratulations. This game has been a big success.
Thank you.
Right? It came out in the Humble Bundle first, and now it's out on Steam. It's getting streamed everywhere. Are you excited?
Yeah, I'm super excited. So yeah, it was commissioned by Humble for their monthly bundle. I guess they do a thing now where they've got this group of subscribers who are subscribed to be able to get cheap AAA games that are a little old as part of a monthly bundle. And to kind of spice it up, they like to commission indie games that are a little bit unfinished, is how they pitched it to me, a little bit maybe out of left field. Small, just a sort of spice, so that they've got something new in their bundle. And I said, well, what kind of person is buying this bundle? I just described them to me, and they're like, well, somebody who's playing alone, and they don't have a controller, and they're on a computer with a keyboard and mouse, and that's it. I was like, well, I've never really made a keyboard and mouse game before. I had it in my mind to do this, so so it was time to just work on. And I thought it was perfect because it's a commission game. When you're commissioned to make a game, you don't have to worry about it being interesting to people or good. You can make something that is for you and not worry about whether it sells. I wanted to make something that some people would like, but I really thought I was making kind of wildly anti-commercial game, but it turns out it's actually doing reasonably well.
Alright, so it's a little untraditional, but I want to start with a question from the internet. And that question is Bennett Foddy real? Yes or no?
I think
it is more complicated.
A lot of people think the name Bennett Foddy has to be a fake name. And people just assume that the character is Bennett Foddy because that's obviously a fictitious name. I had somebody on the Steam forums asking if Bennett Foddy was a good name for their daughter. And then they deleted the thread.
Bennett Foddy.
Yeah.
Quite lovely, actually.
They did it, Bennett. They deleted the thread immediately. But you could still see when people do that if you're the creator of the game. So I can go through and see all the things people thought they would say to me and then thought, that's not a good idea, and then delete that.
So, yeah, talk a little bit about where Bennett Foddy comes from. You've had a really sort of circuitous career.
Yeah.
You're from Australia originally.
I am born and raised in Australia.
And you spent a little time in England?
Yes, so I was trained in physics and philosophy, and I knew one thing when I got to the end of my undergrad degree, which is I didn't want to be a physicist and I didn't want to be a philosopher, and so I went to grad school in philosophy.
Well, that's okay, I guess that makes sense.
And I got my PhD and I went off, I actually came to the northeast of America first. I had a postdoc at Princeton and I was working as a philosopher for 3 years there and then 3 years at Oxford, and I was doing games as a kind of a moonlighting deal for a long time over this period where sort of indie games, flash games and indie games proliferated and started becoming a big thing.
How early did that start? During your PhD work or afterwards?
Yeah, right towards the end of my PhD I made a game called Too Many Ninjas, which was like a little flash game. It's like 2006 I think. So it's like 12 years ago now, and yeah, that was just enough to encourage me to keep doing it. And the more that I made games, the kind of more enthusiasm drained out of my philosophical work and into making games. And so
how long were you a philosopher after you started making games?
Yeah, I mean, I was professionally a philosopher for 6 years.
Okay, yeah, that's a long career to not have your heart in it at all.
It was a gradual process. I wouldn't say that I didn't have my heart in it at all. Yeah, I was sort of discovering more and more sort of depths to the ways that I could enjoy making games, and also meeting more and more people. I mean, going around to GDC, to IndieCade, and various sort of indie events, and meeting people and making friends, and it's just better than philosophy. So you know, at the time, sort of reached a crisis where I was like, I can't continue to try to balance these two things.
I mean, is that career still with you at all? Like, do you think that your work as a philosopher influences at all yourself as a designer?
It's sort of, it influences me, sure. In some ways, if you're trained as a philosopher, you're kind of infected with a way of thinking that is never really fully expunged. But it also, it's like the opposite of influencing, in the sense that it influences me to move away from and to work in ways that are contrary to how you work as a philosopher. It's very methodical, very careful. You asked if philosophy is still with me. It is, in the sense that papers I submitted to journals and got accepted when I was still a philosopher 5 years ago, still not in print. And so periodically you get an update on their progress, and you know, so that's how slow it is in philosophy. I knew when I got out of that field that I wanted to sort of embrace working in intuitive, sort of free-floating ways, being able to kind of free associate, not worrying about being correct, just making connections and working kind of a punk sort of approach. I think that actually really embodied in this game. He was really trying hard to do that for this game.
So I want to go even earlier though. Like, so talk about coming out of Australia. What was that like growing up? Do you have any advice for Australians who want to make something of themselves in the world?
Australia doesn't need any help on that front. Right now, I mean, it's one of the industrial powerhouses of video games, right, between Australia, Sweden, and
do you go back there? Do you have any connections to that?
I'm going back in the summer. Yes, my family's there, so you know I do go back now and again. But
do you have any connections from the indie scene?
Well, of course, I made a game with Doug Wilson, who now lives there. He's an American, but and you know, I know some of those people. But yeah, I think if we look at like Monument Valley is an Australian game that's from Melbourne. I think there's Jetpack Joyride and Fruit Ninja, of course, all those half-brick games that are selling billions of copies. That's all Australia. Florence just came out by the new team being published by Ken Wong. So they're just, it's very, very kind of alive there. Of course, Untitled Goose Game is coming forward from Melbourne as well. But when I was there, there really wasn't a game scene. There had been a couple of AAA studios, or one and a half in Melbourne, over a period, different studios since the early 80s, sort of ongoing. There's always like one production house in Melbourne. And that really kind of died out around the early aughts. And basically, I couldn't find anybody who was interested in indie games or in any kind of games, really. And generally, I think Australian culture was at that time hostile to games. So the shock was that when I came out to New Jersey, I'm living in New Jersey, and you're getting a train, and everybody is playing a video game. I'm just like, I'm walking around, it's like, oh wait, people aren't ashamed to play video games in this country. You've had this because you had consoles in the 80s, which we didn't have in Australia. So because consoles were so expensive, so much tax, so much difficulties, different electrical standard, different TV standard, we really needed something where you could pirate games, and so it was just all computers all the way through the 80s and 90s. And we didn't have that whole period of cultural acclimatization that you had here with Atari and so on.
I mean, Australia has a pretty strong sports culture, right?
Yeah, that's the other part of it. Right. You've got a thing here where you've got nerds and you've got jocks, right? You've got these really, really strong tribes. And the nerds and the jocks play video games. They just don't play the same video games. So we've got Madden, and we've got StarCraft, or whatever it might be in a given year, and it's like, it's like those people are not allowed to play each other's games. In Australia, if you're seen with a video game, like, people run after you and like stomped by
Wow.
my
I learned something about Australia.
I should say it's changed a lot. You know, I used to tour with a band, and I had a Game Boy Advance, and I was so desperately bored waiting for shows and stuff. I'd be playing like Game Boy Advance games, and the rest of the band very kind of like classical, sporty Australian way, just constantly just ragging on me, trying to shut me down, just be like, oh, there he goes again. And now when I see them, it's just always video games, just constantly. So I think the culture has changed a lot. I don't think it's just isolated to them.
So talk about your time as a musician. You've also been a musician at one point,
right?
Semi-professionally.
I kind of fell into that for a while. Yeah. When I was in grad school, I was a friend of mine said he'd been writing music as kind of, he was very popular in the late in the latter moments of the last millennium for DJs to put out records. You know, you'd start with a mixed CD, and then you'd start making your own music, and you basically, if you were touring, you'd basically do a DJ show with a couple of your own songs mixed in. And he wanted to turn that into a real band. So he was like, yeah, we need people being in a band. What do you think about playing bass? And I'm like, yeah, that sounds easy. And he's like, no, you should buy an instrument and practice it a whole bunch. Don't worry about it.
It turned out to be really easy.
Yeah, bass.
All right, well, that's good. Was that like, so that you were in that lifestyle only briefly, did it shape any of your thinking about being a kind of independent, creative person, right? As someone who was working inside institutions, right? You're getting a PhD, you're working at colleges. That was, I would imagine, your kind of biggest exposure to like, oh, here's what being just, you know, out on the road, showing your stuff to people, trying to get a sense of what people want. Is that?
Yeah, I think a lot of what we do in life is we try to find a place where we can fit in. And you know, I had a creeping suspicion at that stage that it was not fully realized that I didn't really fit in philosophy. It was nerdy. I like that, but it was nerdy in a way that kind of excluded all of my interests. Like philosophers really don't play video games anywhere. They're really hostile to video games. I knew. So it's starting to get a creeping suspicion that that wasn't really my people. And I definitely knew that the musicians were not my people, right? That was not nerdy enough. And you're in search of a thing that clicks that can work for you, where you're like-minded people are. And so that's really what I was doing through that period, trying stuff.
So you think that games is that? You feel like you fit in there?
Definitely fits. It's a better fit. Yeah. Yep. I mean,
not perfect.
Well, I don't want to rule anything out, Charles. All right. It could be that I'll discover some kind of like wooden spoon making community or something like that.
I can introduce you to them. They're a friendly bunch. So I want to talk about what, especially for this game, is a very important moment, which is when you played Jazwo's Sexy Hiking. Can you talk about playing that game for the first time and your reaction to it?
Yeah, this is not going to be what you might think. I do remember seeing Sexy Hiking for the first time. So Sexy Hiking, I guess, was made in about 2002, 2003, depending on which version you were talking about. And it was really before there was much of an indie community at all. But later on, around 2005, 2006, it got sort of discovered on, rediscovered by Derek Yu, who was running the Tig Source blog at the time.
Creator of Spelunky.
Creator of Spelunky and Eternal Daughter and various other games. So one of Derek's biggest impacts on indie games is that he ran this forum, the Tig Source forums, and he ran the Tig Source blog. And he was putting all his work into taking stuff that he would discover through community and kind of surfacing it. And I remember games that were written up on his blog featured on Penny Arcade back when that was a big deal, or the Radiohead blog back when that was a big deal. So he was really kind of taste making, and he sort of rediscovered, I guess, Sexy Hiking and posted on Tig Source. And I guess that's when I saw it. If you can actually look at the thread still. There's a lot of people who are still in indie games reacting to it. Like JW from Glanbia likes it, Adam Saltzman from Cannonball, of course, Overland, really hates it. It's like, I was really angry about it. And I downloaded it and I played it and I couldn't figure it out and I just closed it and that was it. But years later, actually, it was at NYU. I was running a class with Clara Fernandez-Barrero on video games from Europe, and trying to find some stuff that was from this sort of contemporary indie scene that was coming out of Europe. And I realized at that point that Sexy Hiking was a game from the Czech Republic. And so we got the students to play that in lab. And I was watching people engage with it, and it's just like at that moment, there's actually something kind of genius about this. It's very unfriendly, it really does not, it's indifferent to the player, it does not care at all, it just bounce off. But there's nuance, it's this broken game where you are, it's much the same kind of fundamental concept as my game. You're trying to kind of climb a mountain with a hammer, but it's made of like all sort of stolen assets. It's kind of very roughly put together. There's not really physics. It's kind of this weird, broken, rule-based system for control. But it just like, it gives you a feeling that you don't get from other games before or since. And so I started, it got into my mind that idea to be like played with.
There's something here, right? There's
something there that was not fully exploited or could be like reinvented in some way.
Does Adam Salzman like this game?
I think he likes it better. He's one of the. I had a lot of trouble getting people to playtest this game. I would show a screenshot of it to friends on forums and Slack channels and so on. Groups of other indie game developers, and they would, oh, I have to play that. I'm a huge fan of Sexy Hiking. I just love how that looks. I really want to play it. And I'd be like, sure, here is a build. And they would download it, and then they'd be like, yeah, I didn't get past the first obstacle. Yeah, I think most people just bounced right. Which so I was like, yeah, this is definitely not going to be a popular game, for sure.
So I want to jump back again. We're kind of going back and forth across your timeline to your first, what I would think of as your first big success, which is Quap.
Right.
Another game that a lot of people maybe bounced off on.
Right.
But found an audience, right?
Yeah.
And it kind of found an audience that maybe not a lot of people knew was there.
Yeah, honestly, I think it's kind of a similar effect. When I launched Quap, I launched it on the TigSource forums. There's a little bit of sort of
Adam Salzman hated it.
Little mild enthusiasm from other indie games makers. Listen, I think that people who design games, by and large, have different tastes than the audience as a whole. But it had a little spike of interest amongst people who were kind of inside the scene, and then it sort of lay dormant for a year and a half with nobody playing it, until all of a sudden, out of nowhere, just suddenly kind of perked up in mainstream interest. Really with the rise of YouTube culture, really this kind of it needed Let's Play culture to be there in order for it to be a thing.
So that's kind of a commonality this and that has, right? Is that this has found a lot of success, especially among Twitch streamers. It comes around just as that is becoming a little bit more mainstream. Right. Quap emerges right around the beginning of Let's Plays and YouTube personalities. Talk about making games that are fun to watch, because that seems like the thing that really connects these. That people seem to really love watching other people play them.
It's interesting, to be completely honest, with both of those games, I didn't think about that. It's something that I do think about when I'm making multiplayer games, because I'm aware that when you're making like a game like Sports Friends, you want. It's always going to be the case that there's more people onlookers than are actually playing the game. And you need those people to be kind of jockeying for position to get a go at the game. So it needs to be almost more fun to watch than it is to play. Really, really important for a multiplayer game. And I guess that must also be true with single player games, but I hadn't really appreciated that until now. But I do think that the sort of inspirations I was drawing from are games that spectate well. But I guess to be totally honest, there are things about this design that I thought would block it from being popular on Twitch and would block it from being popular on YouTube. Like namely that there is a little bit of there's like a progression. There is this voiceover, which I thought would definitely conflict with the people doing their own voiceover, and it's sort of in my head again it's spoiled. Now it turns out the way I think of it, nobody else cares that it's spoiled, and I come to understand that audiences on YouTube, but especially on Twitch, like the concept that they lose interest in a game once they've seen it played through that's not what it is. What they're doing is they're seeing somebody have an experience that they're interested in, and they're like, I want to have that experience. And it's nothing to them that they've seen the whole way through. Surprises don't matter to them, secrets don't matter to them. It's more of a kind of a moment-to-moment experience, which is really, really contrary to the way that I experience games. But it's been an education in like there's a huge generational shift in how people process or how they frame the pleasure that you get playing a game.
Talk a little bit about those influences. So we talked about sense of hiking, but are there any other influences that you're looking at when you're making this thing?
Yeah, I mean, in one way it's a direct follow-on from the two-player pole vaulting game I made for Sportsmates. Super Pole Riders is a game where you have a flexible pole and you rotate around and you use that for locomotion in much the same way. And so in a way it's kind of like a reinterpretation of that. When I made the original Flash version of Pole Riders, there's like a single player mode in that, which I eventually framed as training, where you just go back and forth going over obstacles. But I had it in mind at that stage that it would be fun to have like an adventure mode. I was just way too lazy to build it. So I was like returning to that idea. But at the same time, I have been playing, I guess, David Reedon's game, The Beginner's Guide, with a really big influence on me. This idea that he could insert himself as a character in the game and take control over how it's interpreted and how it's, the kind of context that it's understood in for the players. And of course, Nina Freeman's game, Sybil, that was her master's thesis at NYU, which I was advising on. And she also uses kind of author insertion there. She puts herself as a kind of character in the game, and you're embodied in Nina's persona while you're playing it. And I really felt like that is sort of exciting cultural space at this point in time. I feel like we've had 10 good years of crazy experimentation in genre mechanics in games. And there's still, of course, I don't think we've touched the edges of it. There's a lot more that you can do. But it's also just like, every time there's a new discovery of a new mechanic or something, it's like, of course there are more mechanics, right? It's not as exciting for me as it used to be. And the things that I get super excited about are in the vein of this kind of cultural experimentation where you can change the meaning of a game, or you can change what people's expectations are about the social position of a game. And so those two games were super exciting to me, and I think that was sort of inspiration here as well.
All right, I want to do another question from the internet.
Okay.
Did Jonathan Blow give you permission to use his likeness?
This guy, I think, could grow a better head of hair than Jonathan Blow. This is
Jonathan Blow would look good with a goatee, though.
It's true. A lot of people liken this guy to Vladimir Putin, which I find even stranger, as Putin is old and not actually in that great shape anymore. And because he's quite old. This guy is extremely strong. But of course, this is not. He's Adobe Infused stock character number 1. And I specifically picked the default character from Adobe Fuse because I didn't want to kind of present it as though I had done 3D model character design. Yeah. Well, it's essential to the aesthetic of this game that doesn't look like I didn't work. Really, that was something that I settled on really early on. And yeah, so it's important that he's like a default character. It's weird that people think of kind of default white male number 1 as Jonathan Blow. I don't know if he thinks of himself that way. I don't know if that's good or bad of your John.
So I like that, and I want to dig a little deeper into that. Like, what do you feel like the relationship, Getting Over It has a certain relationship to the production of art in video games, but also AAA aesthetics.
Right.
Right? Oh, and double A aesthetics. In a
Yeah.
sense. Can you talk a little bit more about
Yeah,
that?
I mean, I get into this a little bit in the game, talking about this in the game, but we used to always talk about when Unity came around, Unity and Unreal have these asset stores attached to them, where in theory you can get all the things you need to make a AAA style game without leaving your engine and without having to do any of the work. Right? So we had this kind of panic going on through the 90s and the aughts as the cost of making a video game, especially a good-looking AAA style video game, is going up exponentially. And it's just like, it's obviously unsustainable. How are we going to continue to make games? It's like games cost like $10 million to make now. It's like, that's not sustainable. It's like, oh, I guess now they cost 50 million. Well, now they cost 400 million. Right, so it turned out it was sustainable. But we were convinced it wasn't sustainable and that the solution to the problem would be buying all of the 3D objects and textures in a store. And so these stores exist. And as far as I can tell, most games have maybe 1 or 2% of their objects out of these stores, and the rest of it is just this giant repository of stuff that's not used. It's not ever used. It's made, and then it sits there on Turbo Squid or on the Unity Asset Store for a number of years, used by people for prototypes, or by students, or by real people with really low budgets, but by and large it's not used. And then after a certain amount of years have gone by, it can't be used because it's too rudimentary. And I sort of find that fascinating. And I have the same aesthetics as every other, my internal aesthetics are the same as every other person in video games. Like, we have taste, we're auteurs, and I wouldn't use that shitty rock. Look at that thing, terrible. Look, it's got texture seams, badly scanned. I don't like the shape of it. I'll make my own rock. Is the way everybody thinks about this, and I think like that too. And I was like, well, what if I just stop myself from doing that? What if I just say, no, I can only use free assets, not just assets out of asset stores, but I can only use the ones that they give you for free as like a taste, so that you'll come back and pay money. And because I believe that collage can be beautiful. I believe that a lot of beauty is in composition and in light, and those things would still be in my control. But I thought, well, I can do this and I can work with the kind of speed that I think is necessary. Because if I try to do the quality thing, if I try to work like something like a 2D master, like if I try to work like Konjac, making like sprite art that's very, very beautiful. If I try to work like Robert Young, making very beautiful sort of AAA style aesthetics, then I have to make something that is so small in scope to be almost not there at all. So I knew if I wanted to make something with a little bit more scope, I needed to do something that was not in my normal kind of taste. So yeah.
Well, talk about the technical work that did go in this, because you're taking all of these assets, but it's a good-looking game, right? And then in a sense of that word, right? That like the collage isn't just like throwing a bunch of things together. It's this very particular selection method, and it says something about some aesthetics. So can you talk a little bit about?
Yeah, I can talk about the process. I mean, it's kind of interesting. A lot of these models are from SketchUp Warehouse. You can't really use them for games because, like, even a kind of table in SketchUp Warehouse has like 100,000 polygons and 400 materials, and it's just all terrible. I was like, I'm going to use that anyway. So what I would go through and do is I would be like, well, I had a rough idea. I wanted to start with a sort of roughly naturalistic mountain rising up out of a lake. And then I wanted you to kind of break through the clouds and realize that you were actually on a landfill, like a trash heap. And then I wanted to head out in a more surrealistic direction from there. So I knew I had categories of object that I wanted, and I would just search for like rock, and I would download like 500 rocks. And then I would just like place them, and you're like, you put them in and you rotate them and you look at them and you think about it, and Some of them you throw away. Some of them you use multiple times and just re-rotate them. Like we had a talk from Jane lately from who did the Firewatch art director.
Only 5 rocks?
Yeah, 5 rocks. And you never notice that when you're playing. It's so easy in 3D, especially in a game like this where you're controlling the camera angle. I can get 100 rocks out of 1 rock that I like. But you know, so I just had, I probably picked up like 10 times as many objects as I actually wound up using. And then yeah, it's a matter of going through, I had to rule some out because they're not performant. But by and large, I would just drop them in and see how they look. And if I didn't like it, I would go for something else. And some of it is painstakingly placed. Some of it is thrown in, and I liked where it was. And I think that like collage, visual collages are the same. Right? Some things are. It matters that some of it is very carefully placed, and the rest can be just basically dropped on the page.
So that's the kind of artistic side of this. Let's talk a little bit about balancing and the feel of the game.
Yep.
Right? That obviously in a game like this has to be perfect. Right? It's like you're aiming at a very, very small bullseye. Right?
Yes.
It seems like you hit it. But talk about the process of all of the other 1,000 arrows you shot.
To get a prototype for a game like this is not complicated.
I've seen the App Store. It's definitely not complicated.
Right, like people make clones of this game in a week. You get a couple of physics bodies, you hook them together with some joints, and you leave everything at default, and you're done. To get it to feel good is very difficult. The first thing is, I feel like almost all games that involve a physics engine, what we call floaty, it's like basically the gravity is not high enough, the objects are not weighty enough, the forces are not strong enough. And I knew I wanted this to be like kind of, if you fell, it should feel like a kind of brutal falling with a clunk and you're really having to be kind of muscular and dragging yourself up. So a lot of it was just about getting it stable in the first place. There's more energy you put into the system, the more you get glitches. There's still some glitches in this game, it's not too bad.
So did you do your own physics?
No, this is just Box 2D, which I've always worked in Box 2D. But yeah, so it takes a certain amount of work to get it stable. But then there's all these funny little emergent problems as well. So you've got like this guy moving around, and the camera has to follow him. In Sexy Hiking, the camera's bolted onto him, so it's just like he's always dead center on the screen, which solves a lot of problems, because then your mouse can just exist on the screen, and when it's like this, the hammer is always centered on the screen. So there's no situation where the camera moves and the hammer doesn't, right? But in this game, I wanted like a naturalistic camera, like a modern camera that would move, sort of look a little bit up the mountain and would be very smooth. And that creates sudden problems, because it means that if I've got like a normal mouse that is just moving in screen space, then every time the camera moves, my mouse has moved relative to the left. And that means that the camera's movements are kind of acting against you and pushing you off the mountain. So I needed to create a system where your mouse would stay still in the world but still react to your movements. And that's just like a kind of a colossal tuning problem, right? It winds up being this kind of, it's like a weird little battle between your mouse getting sucked back to the hammerhead and you moving it away from the hammerhead, and then the hammer trying to follow the mouse. So it's like this oppositional system. I think it works pretty well, but it was just arrived at by trial and error, which basically I tried everything.
So do you have like a methodology when you're approaching to a game like this, or is it just trial and error? You just try everything until something works?
You do the simplest thing. You see why it doesn't work. You form a hypothesis about how to fix it, and then you do it. I mean, one of the things that happened was you tested the game, and you're like, my hand is cramping, my hand is killing me. And it turned out you were playing with a mouse, and I've been playing with a trackpad. And you suggested there's this you get this hypothesis that with a mouse, it's very difficult to do a tiny movement because you kind of need to grip it and use your fingers to kind of put friction on the table, otherwise it moves too far. And so the solution to that was to add a kind of an acceleration curve. so that when you're using a mouse instead of a trackpad, it just takes a little bit more movement to get started, and that took away the hand cramps. Of course, I still get the odd player complaining that I'm dumbing the game down.
Do you think that the canonical version of this is played on a trackpad?
It's difficult to say that. I think that by far and away it's been played more with mice than with trackpads. So I would say that's the canonical thing. I'm quite happy to say that I don't play it the canonical way.
Alright, that's fair, that's fair. Alright, I wanna get a little bit philosophical here.
Okay, great.
Could you talk a little bit about garbage as a theme?
Yeah, I mean this springs forth from the same thing that I was talking about, right? So I had this idea that I wanted to work freely and quickly, and I wanted to make something of a certain scope, and that a technical solution to that might be to use this stuff that was garbage-esque, that had been discarded by everybody else and put out for free online. And I was trying to kind of square that, because you can't really make it look realistic. At some level, these rocks don't really look like rocks if you look closely at them. These rocks are some of the best looking assets in the game. They've got seams everywhere, it's kind of low resolution in places. You can't really make them look realistic. And I thought, it's going to be obvious that this is kind of built up out of trash assets. And then I was like, well, that is kind of an interesting idea though. And I was thinking this through and be like, well, what if I try to sort of flip that and make it intentional? And be like, this is intentionally a kind of a trash aesthetic. And the way I'm going to let you know is by having a literal trash heap. It will become clear, you'll reach a certain height. This is just above this point in the game actually. If you can get past this very difficult section, that you pop through the clouds and you realize that this is a mountain of trash. And I got to thinking sort of more and more about how that related to the inspiration for this game, Sexy Hiking. Sexy Hiking, all of the assets are from what Jazzler called asset packs, which were like, in many cases, sort of like little pirate packs of songs, sprites, level art, sound effects. Almost everything in that game is like that. It's like the music is, there's the X-Files theme, there's a MIDI song, and then there is like there's a song that's like from level 3 of Donkey Kong County. And it's like, I think that there is a kind of the arresting visual flavor of that game comes from the fact that everything in it is stolen. In this game, nothing's stolen, it's free, but it's the same kind of thing. It's kind of getting close to that line of like not being sure about what is owned, what's discarded. When I make something and discard it, I don't own it anymore, right? So there's kind of like, there is a lot of sort of interesting, I can say liminality there with these sorts of assets. And I just really wanted to embrace that and kind of make that the theme of the game.
But do you think that there's something about making a game about garbage now?
Oh, now?
Now. Yeah. Right? I mean, it's because we're living in a moment where like garbage has become a very common way of describing a person.
It's true.
Culture is not in a great place.
Yeah.
Like I think we can sometimes talk about games and their success as something that's just kind of sui generis, right? It's just like, oh, of course, this thing is good for X, Y, and Z reasons, and not like games as being part of a moment, right? That like part of their success is that they come out when they come out, right? They appear in people's lives maybe at a moment where they're ready for something like that, or they thirst for something, which is the way we think of most other art. Which is that,
it's an interesting point. There are various different dimensions in which games is a kind of a trash medium, and that may be the kind of, I will explain what I mean by that, but in a second, but it's like maybe that makes them the kind of ideal art form of the 21st century, of the era.
The trash fiction.
Where we've got this giant continent of trash in the ocean, where we're increasingly thinking of it as like this was a trash fire of a year. We are using that term more and more. when I'm saying that they're a garbage medium, I think there are two really different ways that that's true about games. And one of them is that it's just, in the first place, it's kind of it's the essence of pop culture. Right? When games come out in like comic books, it's like an art form emerging from the most sort of unpresuming populist impulse. People like playing video games. We know that since the 60s, and we're making them because people have fun. It's like there's that, at the bottom of making games, there's that kind of low impulse, and everything else that's kind of like more ambitious than that is kind of built on top of that foundation. The foundation is just fundamentally it's a popular medium, and it's sort of like it's a trash art form in that sense. But it's also this is low culture. It's the lowest culture, but also it's at the other end, at the other extreme, it's the most wasteful culture, right? When you play Uncharted 4, and unlike just about any other creative medium, you literally in that game you run through. In many cases, literally just like sprinting through $25 million of work in a minute and a half.
Motion blur.
And minute for minute, that's got to be the most expensive entertainment ever produced. And that's a success. It's not even like that when in development hell, like Heaven's Gate.
Everything was going smoothly. That's exactly.
It was a well-oiled machine. It did exactly what they wanted to do. They wanted to blow $25 million on a minute and a half of entertainment, and that's crazy. It's like, in a way, that's the opposite of low culture in an industrial sense. It's right. That's the opposite of trash culture. Trash culture is associated with what's cheap and what's disposable. And here is games being the thing that just disposed things. It's like the trash generator. Because none of those Uncharted levels ever get used again. That's it. You play that game, it's locked up in a Naughty Dog vault. They don't reuse any of that stuff for their next The Last of Us game or anything like that. That's gone. That's it. You got to see it for a minute and a half. Hope you had fun.
So I want to talk then a little bit about the kind of aesthetics, but not the visual aesthetics of it. So there's a great, so the French sociologist, Roger Caillois, has this idea that one of the things that drives play is this desire for panic, for like, I think he describes it as voluptuous panic. Yeah. This moment where like, you think you've lost control and you're desperately trying to regain it. Yeah. And I feel like that appears again and again in your game. This feeling of, oh no, like, can I recover? And like, what did I do? I don't even know what I did wrong, but I'm about to like, yeah. So could you talk a little about that feeling and why you keep returning to that feeling again and again?
Yeah, I mean, I think in games it is a thing I enjoy, partly because I have so much trouble with that feeling in my life. I was talking to a friend, Kevin Canson, about some home improvement I was doing. And I was like, well, I'm just not a handy person. I'm not. My dad was really good with that kind of thing. And I'm just not handy. And if I try to do something like put a hook in the wall, I go to get the stuff that I need. I've got the tools, I've got the hooks set to go. Something will go wrong. And I don't do what I should do, which is either go to ask somebody who knows what they're doing or go back to the hardware store and get the exact thing that I need. I try to continue with what I already bought because I don't want to. And then it gets worse. I've now damaged my wall, I've bent my hook, and I feel this kind of rising panic, right? Because I know there's a moment coming where I'm going to have to admit that I'm a worthless, nothing person to another human being. And I'm going to call the super, and I'm going to be like, I was trying to fix my toilet in my apartment. And I had only succeeded in breaking it in 3 or 4 different ways. There's water everywhere. I managed to turn off the water, but the bathroom is flooded. And I can just see that in my future there is a moment where I bring him in and I tell him that there was a thing that he should have just been doing and would have taken him 5 minutes. But out of misplaced kind of masculine pride, I tried to do it myself. And here we are. Sorry, I've created several hours of repair work for you for no reason. And that sense of rising panic, I was describing this to Kevin, he's like, yeah, that's the stuff. That's what I live for.
Good stuff.
Yeah, that's the good stuff. That's why he does home improvement. He likes writing just that line where you feel like maybe you're losing it, and you just push it a little further. You double down, you double down, you double down. And I know people who play poker. There's one at every poker table. A guy who he's building up to the moment where he can put all his money down on a bet he knows he's going to lose. Because in that second where you know you really screwed up, that's the most intense feeling that you can get at poker. And they definitely will push on a hand that's going to lose. Those people will do it without fail. I'm convinced this drives the economy of underground betting around the country. And so I get that with video games. So that's, the kind of video games that we got in the 80s and 90s were just incidentally, I think, good at producing this feeling. And I think like a lot of other people, I got acclimatized to it. And just like every other disgusting food that you wind up having a taste for, that's a thing I have a taste for now. I like that sense that I'm just about to lose my mind playing a video game is one of the things that I want from it.
So do you think that the continuing theme of almost all your work, where manual dexterity is the challenge, like just doing something that seems simple, like getting your hands to do the right thing is so hard, or your body doing it. Do you think that grows out of your own sense of inadequacy?
Well, it's not
do you feel guilty that your father was so handy or such a klutz?
He's bad at video games.
Also, you get one over on.
I think that manual dexterity is perfect for this because it really brings out choke. It's not that you can't choke at a strategy game or what puzzle game. Of course you can. But for me, anyway, my whole life, I've been a person who I can do dexterity tasks up until there's any pressure riding on it whatsoever. And then I just doze away. I failed my driver's license 3 times. I once lost a ping pong game from 19 to 1 up. You sometimes see professional sports people get the yips, but I think it's very rare. What allows you to become a professional sports person is you don't choke like a regular person does. And I definitely do. And I love that moment. I think it's great. It's good when we're in competition against another person. It's good when they choke and you win. It's also good when you choke and they win. Like those are the moments of the most dramatic reversals and the biggest emotional dynamics. It's really just the cream. And I think that skill tasks bring this out really well because in a way we're not ever really fully in control of those skill tasks. You get your brain to kind of adapt in a certain way and it's working more or less automatically. And then you're not in control of when it abandons you. And you can't even understand, this is a thing I did 1,000 times, why did I fail this time? That's interesting. That's the kind of interesting part for me.
So that maybe answers my next question, but I'll ask it anyway. What exactly should we be getting over?
Well, you're getting over the mountain, but yeah, I've had a lot of people say to me that there was a point playing this game. On average, people get to the end of this game somewhere between 4 and 6 hours. And I've had a lot of players report to me that there was just a moment where they went from feeling annoyed, or feeling frustrated, or feeling pressure every time that they died, and that at some point they just broke. It's like a horse that's had its spirit broken. And for the rest of the time that they were playing, they would just zen. And they'd fall and they'd be like, I fell again. And maybe they got over something there. Maybe some important part of their psychology that they could never get back.
Is there anything you had to get over to make this game?
I mean, I had to test it to the end. Yeah,
inside yourself, is there anything that broke? Or that you finally got past?
I would say, yeah. I think it's interesting. It's an interesting question, right? Because one of the things that happens when you make a game like this is that you play it more than anybody else will play it, more or less, and it does change. It changes you. I know when Terry Kavanagh was working on Super Hexagon, it was very clear that at some point in playtesting, he could suddenly like see through time, and he would show up to every single public showing of Super Hexagons at a lot of parties in England in particular, and people had a lot of tournaments. Who was such a quick game to play. Who could get the highest score, and he would always do that. It's a very, very bad form, but he just wanted to be. And he would always win by a really, really wide margin. And not only that, but at that time, he's just started to show up at the top of every online leaderboard for every Twitch game on the internet as well. And it was just clear that his brain had just changed in a way. He could now do a thing that normal human being couldn't manage to do. It's like just to be able to react faster, and better reaction times than anybody else. And I think that's gone for him now, but for like a year, he was this superhuman reaction machine. And I do feel like something has happened to me like that, but for not feeling annoyed about setbacks. This week I was doing an interview for a website, and I was talking to this guy for like an hour and a half on the phone, really deep on a lot of different issues, and it was good. It was a really good interview. I felt good about it. And then immediately after the end of the call, I get this text message going, "Oh, I wasn't recording. Can we go again?" And I was like, "Yeah, cool. Let's do it." I just didn't. Like, it was funny. I felt bad for him because he was embarrassed, but I didn't feel like annoyed. There's no kind of like rising sort of, didn't have that kind of hot-blooded feeling that you get when you're really frustrated. It's like that thing you just put a lot of effort into for an hour and a half. You've got to do that again right now. That seems normal, and that's a thing that happens. I won't be shocked if we suddenly have to start this over. we might.
All right, great. Let's open to questions from the audience. We have a question in the back. I'll be repeating the question for you guys, but go ahead, sir.
So at some point in the game there's snow, and when I was figuring out that part, I figured out like the trick. Basically, it seems like it's a little sneaky. Like there's a trick to get through the snow, like hidden geometry.
Yeah.
And it seemed really different from a lot of the other parts of the game. And I was wondering like what your thought process was to like, oh, this is when we find where here.
Yeah, it's kind of anti-design, that part, in a way. I've been thinking a lot about this idea. I mean, one of the rules when you're making games is that you shouldn't have any invisible walls, there shouldn't be any hidden geometry, what you see is what you get. There should be consistency between one part of the game and the other. And we have a word that we use when a game suddenly changes up the rules on you for no reason, which is, we call it bullshit. Bullshit. And that part of the game is bullshit. You're climbing this wall and there's like little hidden hammer, little indentations in the ice wall for the hammer. And I just felt like a little bit of bullshit at that part of the game, totally in keeping with it. And it enabled me to make a really, really strong delivery of a kind of a feeling, an embodied feeling that I was interested in getting out, which I characterize as being almost there but not quite. So when you're trying to drag yourself up this last little section, it's like a very, very steep incline, and you constantly feel like you could just almost catch on and make more progress, and then you fall a long way back. I've been playing a game called Zipzak, which is a mobile phone game by Philip Stolmine, who's really an excellent designer. I don't think he speaks English, or we'll be able to bring him out for something, but he's got this thing where it's like you've got a double pendulum. You're trying to get it to touch this thing at the top just by bending the bottom of the double pendulum, but the bottom part is very small, so you can exert only, it's like being on a swing set, like a giant swing set, and you're a little kid who's got like very, very small feet, and you're trying to get some momentum going. And it's so easy just to kind of almost get there and fall back, and I love that moment. And I wanted to get a bit of that flavor, and I think it does. And the other thing that I liked about it is that by having this kind of steep but not vertical wall, if you start to fall, you gain more and more momentum, and it shoots you off towards this fall that takes you right back to the beginning of the game. So there's this moment where you can like decide to go back to the beginning of the game. And players mostly decide, no, I'm going to go to the end. And you're like, well, whoops, I guess you fell back to the beginning of the game anyway. So yeah, I felt it was worth a little bit of anti-design and a little bit of bullshit right at the end. Just.
Sorry, what's the game you mentioned?
It's called Zip Zap on the mobile phone. I really recommend it. It takes a little bit of time to really get to the frustrating point, but when you get to the later levels, it's a very, very good engine of feeling that way.
Another question from the audience. Yes, right there.
I'm sure you've seen some of the crazy speedruns. You're done getting over it, finishing the game in 5 minutes, skipping 9 seconds. Did you design the game to be speedrun, or have that kind of thing in mind, or did you just kind of have that?
Yeah, so the question is, did I design it with speedruns in mind? I knew people would try to speedrun it. I think that was clear to me, and so yeah, I left the door open for a couple of skips. I didn't ever test them to see if they were doable, because I always assumed that speedrunners are going to be 100 times better than me at my game. So even with all the practice that I did, the fastest I've ever cleared this game is in about 40 minutes, which I did on the Kotaku screen. For whatever reason, I couldn't choke in that situation.
Because you're over it.
Yeah, no, it was more because Tim Rogers was babbling in my ear the whole time.
Soothing.
Yeah, I was distracted, I think. It was really important that I was distracted. But I was sure that the absolute outer limit for speedrunning was about 10 minutes. And current world record is a minute 45. You know, when this happens on Chinese streams, they say, welcome home.
Another question from the audience for Bennett Foddy. Yes, right there in the center.
Actually, Ben, I wanted to ask you about that. Like, I've seen you been tweeting a lot about the Chinese memes around getting over it, and I'm wondering if there's something particular about the design and the imagery that like speaks to China's emergence.
I can really. I'm not conversant enough in contemporary Chinese games culture, which is its own thing, and it's kind of so disconnected from sort of Anglosphere games culture in a way that I love hearing about it, but I can't claim to understand it. I know that people have getting over it with Bennett Foddy doesn't mean anything to people who don't speak English and who only speak Chinese, and so they have their own names for the game. And I know that one of the more popular names for this game is You Should Visit Home More Often. which is the title of a popular parental guilt song in China. In America, they don't have parental guilt songs. But that just it gives you a sense of how much the resonance of a game or of the kind of memes around a game depends so much on kind of localized cultural differences. And for me to try to understand what it's like to play this game in a country that has parental guilt songs and every other kind of rich thing of Chinese culture is just impossible to understand. But I do enjoy seeing it, just to see people sort of interpreting it a different way.
Is there a Chinese Games press that's reached out to you, or is there really nothing like the way we have an enthusiast press?
I have definitely been contacted by a number of people in China and Japan to show the game on live streams and in live events, like IndieCade events, just to be able to kind of put it up and have people play it. And I did a couple of interviews, but no, I mean I don't think there's that much interest in knowing about the kind of Australian creator of the game. I think it's almost exoticized a little bit in Asia in a way that I can totally appreciate. We sort of do that. We did that with Cave Story, the most famous game.
Yeah, it's ironic because I remember one of the stories you've always told about Quap is that you liked that people felt like they had found it.
Yeah.
Right? That they just found this weird corner of the internet, and that's what made Quap successful. That was part of the formula for Quap's success for you. And now you've actually made a game that probably really does feel like that for millions of people. That they really have just found this strange thing that makes no sense. And yet,
Yeah, I mean, I guess I did have an inkling that I thought it would do well in Japan, because I really did get to experience the way in which with pop, it resonated with them, the idea of this game that seemed to not come out of like a industrial intent that was sort of there by accident. And yeah, so it's why I bothered to put in Chinese and Japanese subtitles. So, I thought that it might work, but that's just a guess, right? I also thought it would work for Russians, so the kind of uncompromising sort of Slavic.
I made Putin the main character, so.
Right. But you know, I don't think Russians have cared that much about it. So it just goes to show that it's very difficult. It's difficult enough to understand American culture and Australian culture, let alone cultures that you don't have that much contact with.
Another question from the audience for Bennett? No? All questions have been answered. Okay, let's go with this gentleman.
I've watched a lot of people play the game, and I've heard a lot of the commentary you put into the game. Where did all that come from? All the inspiration for the little anecdotes, the music choices?
Yeah, so the question is, where did the inspiration for the voiceover that happens at different points in the game, where did that come from?
Right, so I mean, I've been playing the beginner's guide in Civil, and I had this idea that it was an option, a kind of interesting part of the creative palette to put your voice in. But you know, why this in particular? When you make a game where that happens over and over again, I think that by default people don't assume that it's intentional. And I didn't want to field 100,000 emails from people going, "Oh, hey, you should put save points in your game." Which, you know, I do get some of those emails, but not very many. I wanted people to understand that it's like this because I want it to be like this, right? I think that going back to one of Charles's questions, you know, why do I make games that are about frustrating people? And you know, part of the answer has to be that I don't like the degree to which games are treated as